Hello, everybody, and welcome to Called Up the Prospects podcast. I am Chris Peters, along with my co-host. He's back, folks. Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects. Cam, great to have you back. We missed you last week, but you were busy, and we're going to talk about that today. But how the heck are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. What have I missed? 2 of 3 now. Like I'm on a bad roll right now. I was trying to race out to make that one last week. Sad to have missed it, but I did catch some of it there, and it was you guys were having fun in studio, so it was good. It was good that I missed it. Maybe give the people something different rather than looking at my stupid face all the time too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we had Liz Child on last week. It was great to have her. Thanks to Liz for popping in with us there. And it was outstanding to get her take on things. And we got to talk about her favorite topic, which is goalies. And so we talked a bit about Canada's goalies, which we won't talk about today, but we will talk about the World Juniors a little bit later. But Cam, you were not here because you were in East Lansing, Michigan, which is a great place to be. Because that is where the number one hockey team in all of the land is, and that is also where Gavin McKenna was playing against them last weekend. So Michigan State versus Penn State, 1-3, the most highly anticipated game. We are going to talk about that in greater detail here in just a second, but do want to remind you that hockey hits harder on Flo. We got a quick message here from FloHockey, which is to say we got more games. We got more action. We got more teams. Get that annual subscription today, and you will be happy about it. It is good to be here on Flo. Let's take a look.
Hockey hits harder on Flo. The AHL, the ECHL, the USHL, the O, the Q. So don't just watch hockey, live it. Get your annual Flo subscription now.
And there it is. And that was my worst cue that I've given to our producers in the history of this podcast. But we got through it. And yes, hockey does hit harder on Flo. Lots of things happening. We're going to talk about a lot of things like college hockey today. I've also got some questions later on for you, Cam, in regards to both the World Juniors, but also some of the other things kind of happening, including in Beyond Belief. I wanted to hit on 2027 briefly if we could. So I may have thrown in a little bit of a new question there for the 2027 NHL draft, because we're just coming out of the Under-17 World Hockey Challenge, which had some things to be talked about. So where we're going to start today is the biggest topic. And as I mentioned, Cam was in East Lansing. He was on site. He was able to see it. If you have been on the internet this week, you have seen all of the columns from me, from Cam, from Mitch Brown, from Scott Wheeler, from a number of places. And it's all about Gavin McKenna. And through 12 games, the question is, what do we make of Gavin McKenna? And Cam, your takeaways from seeing him live, what were your main takeaways there?
Yeah. I've seen Gavin play live a good number of times now over the last few years. A good number. I don't even well into the double digits, I'd say, for sure. For sure. This was the least engaged I've seen him. You know, I've seen him play for Medicine Hat. I've seen him play for Canada U18s at Helinka and this World Juniors. And this was, I would say, it just had a different feel to it. Now you can see right from every puck touch, he was probably the most skilled player on the ice. Like I don't even think that's a stretch to say. When he gets the puck and he moves his feet and he does the things that he doesn't telegraph any of his moves. His playmaking is through the roof, but he just doesn't have that jump. Not to say that he was much of a digger in Medicine Hat either, or internationally, but he had more of it. And it just looks like he's shying away from the tougher areas, the contact. You know, we were talking about it, and I was naive. I thought I was going to be the only one out in East Lansing for that weekend. Boy, was that silly, right? Like, it seemed like every scout and exec in the biz was out there, and obviously Wheels was out there too, so we were having a good time. But we were talking about a whole group of us, and, you know, the difference, one of the big differences in college hockey is that when you strip a guy, say you strip a Shane Van Saggy, guess what he's going to do? He's going to lay the lumber right into that nice sweet spot between the elbow pads and the shoulder pads, and he's going to give you a little whack, and you're going to feel it. And that is all throughout the league. If you strip a guy, they're going to let you know, and it is like it's got that little bit of bite to it. And it just seems like McKenna was shying away from that, was just taking those opportunities, just kind of hang around, waiting for the puck to come to him in open ice. And then when he got it, he was able to make plays. He was certainly setting up guys. They gave him Serrato for about a minute, and he found him in the high slot and he rang it off the crossbar, right? Like, he scored the only goal for Penn that weekend. McKenna did. He was creating most of their chances, but at the end of the day, like, we're hanging out with these scouts, we're hanging out with these agents, these execs, and everyone's just kind of like, where's the effort? Like, where's the oomph in this kid's game? Because the skill is there, and now it's like, where's the will? So I would say overall, not a great weekend for McKenna. I'm sure he would say the same thing too. Penn, played a much better game on Friday night than they did when they got blown out on Saturday, and they really couldn't find much going on. But I think a big question is he in the right spot to really thrive? Is Penn State plays this structure that is kind of structureless. They let them kind of freewheel and play this fire wagon hockey, and then they hope that the goaltending can back them up. I think they gave like 4 shorthanded breakaways on Friday night. Like, it's just not in such a contrast compared to what Michigan State does with Nighty there, with Adam Nightingale. They play a very high-paced, tight checking, but they have a lot of skill as well. Those guys are dialed in, and everyone's buying in. You look at Cayden Lindstrom, a 4th overall pick, not even seeing first power play opportunities, right? Playing 14 minutes a night, and he is totally fine with that because he's earning all the ice that he gets, and he wants more, and everybody's buying in. And it just seems like Penn State is, you get what you want. And, right now McKenna's not in a situation playing with players that can really capitalize on the great playmaking that he has been, putting on their sticks. And then, if the power play is not clicking, then the team's not clicking, basically. And so it was a difficult weekend for McKenna, but I do think people need to remember the body of work and the high skill level that this kid has. And it's going to take an awful lot to unseat him at the top.
Yeah, and I think it is, but it's like, now's the time to start asking the questions, because of the one thing that you really that is going to potentially unseat him is if there is a lack of effort combined with a lack of production, combined with all of these expectations. And I think that there's an understanding where one of the key things is their best line right now at Penn State is not the line that Gavin McKenna is on. And that is not great for him or for Penn State for that matter, just because you've got, their top line is Matt DeMarsico with Charlie Serrato and JJ Webush, and they have been dominant this season. And so you understand from that standpoint, you don't break that up. That's a group that you want to keep together. Now, Gavin McKenna is still playing massive minutes, but in those minutes, not necessarily producing. So I looked through the entire body of work of the season so far, Cam, just to give, and he has 14 points in 12 games, which on the surface for a 17-year-old freshman looks good. But in context with the other top tier prospects, no one has come in with the level of hype. And I would say no one has come in with the deserved level of hype the way that McKenna has. He was the reigning CHL player of the year. He was, had 54 plus game point scoring streak last year, WHL champion. Like, all of this is warranted. This attention is warranted. Now, I've always bristled at the people that said he's Bedard or Celebrini level, because I haven't felt that way about him the same way. Not to say, but I think, is he greater? The expectations were certainly higher on him than, say, James Hagen's last year. And James Hagen's had 15 points in 12 games last year. So, so even he had one more point, and he did have better teammates, or better line mates, I should say, in that. And there's a lot of different excuses you can make for Gavin McKenna, but I don't know how many excuses I can make for one assist against LIU in a home weekend. I don't know how many excuses I can make for a player that isn't showing the level of jam needed to compete against the number 1 team in the country. If there was a game for him to get up for, or 2 games to get up for, that Michigan State series was it. It was to say, I made the right decision by going to Penn State. And, the end result was, a -3 in the blowout loss, and, kind of a team that's heading back to Happy Valley with their tail between their legs. So there's a lot of things there. And just to kind of put it in context, Adam Fantilli, Macklin Celebrini, Jack Eichel, the guys that were freshmen that won the Hobey Baker, all massively have outperformed through 12 games. If you just take the 12-game sample, massively outperformed what McKenna has done so far this season. So, Cam, I want to ask you this, if I can, and this is on topic with this. As you kind of observed, and you touched on this in your earlier statement, is this a fit? Like, is there really a fit? Like, is having, again, I don't want to put, players down, but the fact of the matter is that Michigan State has 5 or 6 first-round draft picks on their roster, multiple guys that are going to play in the NHL, probably a half dozen, maybe more, maybe 10 that could play at some point in the NHL. My thought is that Penn State might have 3. And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, there could be more. Maybe some of these guys make it as undrafted free agents and other things. Does the environment around McKenna, and you touched on the structure, but even just in terms of the line mates, the teammates, the different things like that, does it serve the player well enough for him to, get out of this, whatever? Like, it's not even a hole. It's more just kind of like mediocre. I don't even know if mediocrity is the right word, because he is over a point per game player. It's a strange thing to kind of think about, but I mean, let's consider the hype.
Yeah. So I'll say this is that when it came down and I was told that it was going to be either Penn or Michigan State last summer, and I was like, because we had heard Michigan was obviously, they early on, they looked at maybe taking a crack at him too. And there were some other schools there in Boston as well. That Penn obviously was coming out with some big bucks, right? And that I'd also heard from other players, not just him, Jackson Smith as well, is that, they went and visited that campus and they were like, whoa, this seems really cool. This seems like a great environment. But looking at the body of work from that program to develop NHL players, it just isn't there, right? The program exists because Terry Pegula has so much money and he's infused so much into it. So obviously a massive pull for them to get McKenna and Jackson Smith for that matter. But you can't help but wonder, and not to say that Michigan State has been a powerhouse every year for decades, but, since Adam Nightingale has shown up, Will Morlock, I can't tell you how many players I talked to just without me bringing it up, mentioned Will Morlock and talked to, and that's their strength and conditioning coach at Michigan State, just how important it was for them to work with this guy, to be able to have all those facilities, but then also have a plan in place and have all the structure in place for them. Like Porter Martone told me that he's up 9 pounds and he told me he was down 2% body fat. And then Nighty said he was down 4% body fat. So somewhere between there, maybe call it 3. And that's in 2 months that this is an 18-year-old that's just like transforming his body in real time while playing, like during mid-season. Like that's crazy. But just Nightingale, right? Like he is an alpha coach, but is just like, he's very personable. And the guys respect him and they want to work for him. They want to, they want to do everything they can to earn their ice time and to do what he's asking of them, because they just have this utmost respect for him and his system and the coaching staff there. And I just can't help but wonder what Gavin would look like playing for the Spartans right now. Because, he's not getting first line opportunities there, but even if he wasn't getting first line opportunities at Michigan State, he'd still probably be playing with Riker Lee and Cayden Lindstrom or Eric Nilsson or, like one of these guys. Like there's just all sorts of first rounders and second rounders hanging around there that he could have fit well with, probably better than he is at PSU. It's easy to point and question at it right now. And I think that we might look back at this in 12 more games and maybe he has 18 points over the next 12. And all of a sudden we're like, okay, he's finding his way. He's doing everything he needs to do. But like you said, it's strange to be talking about this player because if you just look at the stat sheet and you say he's 17 years old, he's above a point per game, his team is, still probably considered top 5 in the nation. How is this considered bad? And you can also look at his game and be like, it's not that much different than what it was playing in Medicine Hat. It's just the level of competition is tighter, it's stronger, it's harder. But you can also look at that and be like, his game's not that much different than it was last year. Well, we want it to be different. We want it to see it evolving, and that you've stepped up and you've gone to a more challenging environment. You need to adapt your game for that environment, right? You're not getting away with it like it's the U18s in Finland, like it was a couple years ago, and you were just dicing and slicing through everything. It's not Medicine Hat where you're able to just, strip a guy, a 16-year-old from the back and turn around and go for an end-to-end rush. Like those things aren't happening at this level. And guess what? They're not going to happen at the next level either. And so just looking at him, I love the kid. I really love the player still, but what we saw this weekend does not scream this kid's ready to step into the NHL next fall. We do have 10 months, whatever it is, before it's time for that to happen. And a lot can change and a lot of muscle can be added. And hopefully that is what's going on at PSU too, that they have a great strength program as well. That's really pushing him to add weight and strength because he needs it to make that transition. But it's really easy to wonder what would we be saying about Gavin McKenna right now if he had chosen to go to Michigan State instead of PSU.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting, kind of what if scenario. And here's the thing, like, if you are Penn State and he does not go number one, you will never get another top prospect. If you just
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like it's the knock on the program for its entire existence is you do not produce NHL players.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gifted one of the best NHL prospects to play college hockey relative to their prior body of work. And now it's not all on Penn State. A lot of this is on Gavin too. He's got to play better. He's got to make the most of his chances. And no one should ever come away from a game saying, hey, he didn't really look like he had it tonight. Like you only play 40 games in a season, so you better have it every single night. And so that's partially on him. I don't want to put this all on the Penn State coaching staff or the situation, because I think that they're giving a lot of the tools to, you talk about Will Morlock and all the other things there. They have a great strength and conditioning program at Penn State. They have incredible facilities. They have things where players aren't really left wanting. And so, they have those things, and they may not have it at the level and that some of these do. Will Morlock is kind of a one-of-one kind of guy, and a lot of, he's renowned throughout the country for the work that he does. But I do think now all of a sudden you're saying, wow, this is, Gavin McKenna wanted to create a legacy at Penn State. The thing is that if let's say that things go in a certain way, and again, it's 12 games in, we got plenty of time,
mm-hmm.
but
mm-hmm.
In college though, 12 is a lot of games. It's a pretty
30-year
good
season
of kind of where.
Yeah.
It's a quarter of the season, and so, but we talked about what a windfall this was for Penn State. But the one thing I did say at the beginning is it only matters if it works, and if it didn't, it goes the complete opposite way, and now you're going to struggle to gain those players because. Like, I was Casey Bailey, who was that's one of their few NHL players. They're going to have a few guys that are probably going to play. I think Charlie Serrato is going to be an NHL player. I think Jackson Smith is going to be an NHL player. So those are going to help. Obviously, Gavin McKenna is going to be an NHL player. That'll help them change the narrative. But the narrative is going to be pretty ugly if Gavin isn't the number one overall pick. And so. There's a lot riding on the World Juniors for old Gav all of a sudden because, a couple of guys have pointed this out to me. They only have 2 more weeks of games before the World Juniors. They're off for 6 weeks after their game against Minnesota. So the time to change the narrative is dwindling quickly.
Mm-hmm. And don't they have Michigan coming into town this weekend too for a set against Michigan number 2 ranked Michigan, right?
Michigan at home, Minnesota on the road to end it up.
Yeah, nasty.
And then and this year Canada's not doing a tryout camp; they're just picking the team, so they're going to have a training camp. So he'll fill his time with that. But oh boy, But
the other thing I'll quickly say too is that I heard,
yes, please,
and we'll see if this gets confirmed, but we did hear whispers out this last weekend too that Aiden Fink might be gone for a while too, which is certainly not going to help out McKenna down the line up there too.
Real bad, yeah. And that's the thing is like Aiden Fink, he's another guy who's way behind his pace from last season, and then he got hurt, but before that he was behind his pace, and so.
Yeah.
with playing with McKenna. So it's just kind of a weird dynamic. Lots of time to figure things out. But I did want to focus on, let's think about the conversation. It's a new era in college hockey. More CHL players are coming in. So in addition to Gavin McKenna, let's talk about some of these other guys that did make the jump from the CHL to college hockey. You got a chance to see him very close. You just talked about all the benefits developmentally that he's been experiencing. But let's talk about Porter Martone, who has 11 points in 8 games. So he has had a very strong start. He's the top scorer for Michigan State this season. The Philadelphia Flyers prospect. Tell us what you thought of Porter in that setting and just this season overall.
Yeah. Another kid that I got to know pretty well, last season, and even going back to the U18s before that, but so spent a good amount of time with him. I probably never seen him so relaxed as he was when we were hanging out at MSU last weekend, though. Like he genuinely seemed like he like enthusiastically talking about the program, talking about his experience so far, again, talking about Nighty and Morlock and all those guys and just the team in general. One of the questions I asked all those guys was, like, who are you hanging out with the most? Like, what do you guys like to do? And it's like, they were all like, we just hang out together. Like, it is truly a team environment. He was really emphasizing that. And I think that goes a long way to building, the program that they have there too. But Martone on the ice, I thought that there were flashes where he was very good, very good. On a whole, on the weekend, I thought he was just fine. He did point up a little bit, but I thought he started games really fast and hot and had some jam to his game, and then kind of lost it a little bit as the game wore along. Again, kind of similar on Saturday night, but that was kind of a bit of a slap together game. And Charlie Stramel was really the best player on the ice for both teams on that one. But Martone, he looks a little bit quicker. He looks like his cardio is improved. And again, he credits that to the coaching staff. Like, I watched their practice there the day before their weekend set against Penn, and it looked like an NHL practice, where you got a few days off coming up too. Like, the boys, it was competitive. It was fast. At the end of every drill where they're going all out, it's bang, bang, bang. Now they're doing lines too. Like, it was high paced. And he talked about it at the beginning of the year, like he couldn't keep up. Like, he was gassed through partway through the practice. And now all of a sudden, his lungs and his legs they're catching up. And he's feeling a lot better, and you can see it on the ice too. So no, I think Martone's going to continue to have a really strong year there. I bet you he pops at the juniors as well, and then through the back half of the season, he's going to be ready for Philly next year, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think he's getting out of this experience exactly what he wanted to, which is to say, playing in an elevated role, playing. Having the practice and development time, having the strength training time, having the conditioning time, all very important. Now, on that same roster is Columbus's number 4 overall pick, Cayden Lindstrom, who spent most of last season on the shelf, did play in the Memorial Cup, but did not play a lot. He has 2 points so far through 8 games. As you mentioned earlier, he's playing more second power play. He's down their lineup. It is a deep team. I'm a little more interested, I would say, less about the points and more about what you saw from Lindstrom just in terms of handling the pace of play, handling the physicality, and how he worked within that structure, and what they have at Michigan State. What were the things that you took away from that weekend on Cayden Lindstrom?
Yeah, lots. And I wrote a big feature about it, and it really took off, which was great to see. He gave me great quotes. Nighty and the coaching staff, some of his teammates. I talked to Rick Nash from Columbus and got quotes from him as well too. And it turned out he was in town, so that was perfect. Cayden is like a ferocious competitor. And I think that missing all that time, a year and a half basically off, is very, very difficult mentally for probably most every hockey player. But, for someone like him who is so driven, that I think that was a huge challenge for him, that back injury that just like wouldn't get better until it got better. And now he is healthy, but you can see, he talked about it, and he talked about it, is that getting back, Darren, his agent, getting back to speed, getting your legs and your lungs, it takes time. And you can see at Medicine Hat at the end of the year there in the Mem Cup, it was systematically like sitting him out games. He wasn't getting, many shifts. He had basically like a burst a game, and now it's coming back. And you can see it in the games where He's still not there. He's still not there with his puck touches, especially that first touch where he receives and he wants to make a move. But the legs, he's looking faster. The length of his shifts, he does still burn out a little bit at the end, but boy, oh boy, were there like some massive flashes. Like he had one where he picked up the pass through the neutral zone and it was like, boom, like a burst, and he was gone on that partial breakaway, and he went and tried to go between the legs and just missed it on like a silky one. But the other thing too is that fiery competitor in him is like, he must have hammered his stick on the ice out of frustration 4 or 5 times in the second game. And you could see Nighty was said something like enough, and he's hard on himself, and that's not even like being super mad at his teammates, because there was a couple opportunities where he could have gone in alone and he didn't get the puck and they didn't make the play to him, and he bangs the stick. But that's him. Like he is a competitor. He wants the puck. He wants to be producing. And I do think it's easy to point like, they took this kid over Demidov, who might put up 70 this year in the show. And here's Cayden, 2 points in 8 games in the NCAA. People need to pump the brakes on this. Is that back injury set him back, obviously, but he is a very unique player. And I do believe that he's going to get there to where he needs to be. And that if that's another season at Michigan State, I think that's just totally fine for him. And again, with Will Morlock, that is where you want to be. You want to be strengthening all the right muscles and getting yourself ready and prepared for every game and learning how to do that. He's such a freak athlete that he could probably just roll out of bed and throw down a 360 windmill dunk and then go, rip it on the ice too. So he's got to prepare his body best for long-term to stay healthy. But he's such a unique piece. And Nash even talked about that too. He's like, he could be a first liner. He could be a first line center, a first line winger. He could be a third line shutdown guy. He can be whatever, you want him to be, because he has that size, that speed, and that competitiveness. And he does have just a ton of skill. So points aren't there yet, but I do believe they'll get there.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it may be another year, and I think that's okay. I think if you are the Columbus Blue Jackets, the investment you've made in the player, the patience is going to be part of the payoff here. You have to make sure that you took on that risk when you drafted him. It was known that there was injury issues. I don't know that anybody was certain that he would miss so much of the following season as he did, which was basically the whole season. So a lot they're riding on that for Columbus, but I do think that he's a player that's trending positively. Now, here's one other question for you, Cam, and this may be tougher to answer. Your team, Canada, are you taking Kaden Lindstrom with you to the World Juniors?
I had this discussion with a few people too over that weekend, and personally, the guys that he's going to be going up against for that last roster spot, is it Braden Coots, or has he solidified him spot just because he was in the NHL long enough? But, there's going to be a few guys there that you're looking at bringing as kind of that utility piece, that maybe that 13th forward, that maybe they jump up if things aren't going well, or they can play the middle of the ice and so they can fill in if there's an injury, or they can play the wing if they need to too. So I look at a guy like Coots in that regard, who's, a leader. He plays good two-way hockey. He's a safe player. He's also not that dynamic or that big, but he checks a lot of boxes for you. Or do you bring a guy like Cayden, who can turn a game on its ear, right? With his size, his speed, and his skill. All of a sudden, if you need him to, you want to throw him out there with your top line, he can run somebody over and then make a play. He can just go for a full rush. I think he brings a higher end ceiling that you can, if you can press the buttons in the right order, you can crack that code when you need to. He could be a game changer for them in certain moments, where some of these other guys that I think where he's competing for that 13th spot. So personally, I would wait until the very last minute to see if he's starting to, polish out his game a little bit and you're like, okay, he is ready to go. I would be very, very interested in bringing him. But if he's still kind of fighting the puck a little bit and he's just not quite sharp enough at this point, you leave him back. And so I think that he does have a couple weeks here to prove that his game is trending in the right direction, but he should 100%. And, at the summer showcase, he was one of the best players there, I was told, right? I wasn't there, but I heard that he was one of the best players at the summer showcase, where there was not a lot of good players, right? So at least he has that in his back pocket too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was important. And one guy who wasn't at the summer showcase, who is still a candidate for the World Juniors, is another player in college hockey, another big man, another man with injury concerns coming out of his draft year. That's the Anaheim Ducks prospect, Roger Lightning McQueen. 5 assists in 9 games with Providence for the big man. This has been an interesting one. And now, I think in a similar way, he's another player that has had to simultaneously find his way back while in a new role, in a new team, in a new environment against, really quality Hockey East competition, and a strong non-conference schedule. He's another one where it's like, I don't think you'll be bringing him to the World Juniors. I'd be surprised at this point. Maybe you feel differently, but 5 assists through 9 games, no goals for Roger McQueen. What? Any takeaways? Any thoughts from the big man, Big Raj?
Big Raj. One of my thoughts is, did he choose the right program? Like, is that Nate Lehman's a good coach? He's a good coach for sure, but like, is that where he was going to develop the most? I'm just wondering if that was the best decision for him, or if he could have gone to Michigan, or if he could have gone to BU. I don't know. I just wonder if that's going to be the best spot for him to maximize what they want, what the Ducks envision him becoming. But he's there now, and he is struggling to find it a little bit. And I think he would be considered behind Lindstrom for a chance at the juniors. Like, I don't really think that he has a legitimate chance of making it.
And I think behind is kind of Roger right now, period. And part of it is because of the injury. Yeah. He's behind. He's behind of where he would normally have been in a healthier situation. A big reason. So there were a number of reasons that he chose Providence, but one of them was longtime friend Hudson Malinowski was playing there. It was, there's a connection there. When those two players were on a different path, one going to college and one going the major junior route, you have to go on divergent paths. And now this is their chance to play together. And, people make decisions for whatever reason. I think for the high-end offensive potential, we'll see. We saw Trevor Connolly go there, did not really produce, left early.
Got out quick.
So, he left right away. So, and that's the thing. The coaching staff now, that's part of the challenge, is that you have to make the case for top prospects. I think, you look at the types of players that Providence has sent to the NHL, often depth pieces, guys that are more kind of the grinded out defensive stalwart players, less of the higher end offensive potential. But that's where it is. But one player that I think has so far been a success story for the NCAA is Cole Reschny over at the University of North Dakota. I think North Dakota needed some offensive pop. They got it from Reschny. He has 10 points through 10 games, 2 goals, 8 assists. A player that I think is just starting to scratch the surface of what he can be as a collegiate player. But I think there was he was one of the first players that jumped at the opportunity. And so I think there are a lot of eyes on him and how this is going to go. So far, so good for Cole Reschny. Any thoughts on him there, Cam?
Yeah, he's a good player. I really like, so I got back, I don't even think I was home yet from that MSU trip. And I got a message from North Dakota being like, when are you coming out to check out our program? And I was like, let's set it up. North Dakota is not easy to get to, right? Especially from where I live. So I'm actually eyeballing. No, so I'm eyeballing, which was not easy to get to or home. Thank you, government shutdown, Mr. Trump. But I'm eyeballing their weekend set in Arizona at ASU in January. So go down there and spend some time with Nodak in the sun and fun. Maybe go swimming with Reschny there too. We can play some pool volleyball or something like that, right? But no, he's been good. He's a good player. I think he's translated from what I've seen too. Like, I haven't seen him live there yet, but on tape he's looked good. And then same with Keaton, right? The two Victoria Royal boys moving over there too. They both looked promising. And I do think Reschny should have himself a spot on that Team Canada roster.
Yeah, really heady player. I mean, you think of probably not going to have Ben Kindle anymore, so Reschny, get him in there, and then you're going to feel better about that. And I thought Reschny was also quite good at the summer showcase, heady player. I had him ahead of Kindle, and you look at what Ben Kindle's doing. And
many people did,
but Cole Reschny, and I think Cole Reschny is very much on track here. It'll be interesting to see for me if he's going to do another year there too. Is he a 2-year guy or is he a 1-year guy? That'll remain to be seen. But
should be a 2-year guy.
About another guy that What's that?
I said
What'd you say?
I'd leave him there for another year. I'd leave him there for another year, especially with the way Calgary's
what's
trending.
the rush in Calgary? It's not like
Yeah.
you're going to instantly turn things around next year. So,
Yeah.
So I think that's something for him. I'm gonna come back to Keaton Verhoff. I'm gonna skip ahead of him real quick. I just want to talk very quickly about Jack Ivankovic, one of the goalies to make the decision to go and make the jump. He has played 12 games so far. He has won 10 of those games, has a .911 save percentage and a .209 goals against average, looking very, very sharp. Michigan has not played the strongest, stiffest schedule yet, but they have dominated most of it. And that has been really impressive. And you look at over the years, recent years for Michigan, their Achilles heel has been goaltending. That is not the case this year. Ivankovic probably not playing quite well enough to necessarily unseat Carter George as Canada's number one, but he's going to play. He's got to play games at the World Juniors, right? I mean, he did last year. It only stands to reason that he would again. Don't you think, Cam?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think we joked about it on this show, is that what does he need to do at Michigan? Well, he needs to maybe wear a Maple Leaf jersey underneath his yellow and blue, and because he plays at god levels when he's internationally. So no, I honestly, I think it's a goaltending battle for Canada. I think that they're going to play them both early on in round robin play. And if one guy looks demonstrably better, he's going to get the ball. And if he starts to fall off, the other guy's going to get it. Like, they should feel pretty confident rolling either of those two out there. And, Ivankovic has looked very, very good. Like you mentioned, hasn't been the hardest, the most challenging set of games yet. But they're coming, and he just keeps winning and, saving, above average save percentage too along the way. So no, he's been good for sure. And, another just a smaller goalie that's finding his own way and just up against the hill every time, and people will keep questioning him, and he'll just keep having to prove it.
Yeah, absolutely. And great to see, and good on Jack for continuing to elevate whenever he's out there. So, all right, we're going to close this out in terms of just the guys that we're going to go in depth on, and that's with Keaton Verhoff. And so, I said, I wrote the column this week, when is it okay to start worrying about Gavin McKenna's number one status? And I said, not yet. Not yet. And part of the reason is that I don't think that anybody has necessarily jumped up and said, it's me. I'm actually the number one guy. However, I would say that Keaton Verhoff has played quite well. He has adjusted well. North Dakota has not necessarily thrown him into the deep end right away. They've given him the appropriate minutes. They put him in positions to succeed. He has 4 goals this year. So he and Gavin McKenna, similar in the goal count so far this year. 4 goals, 2 assists, though. So the 2 assists, that's actually the part that kind of stands out to me a little bit more, because you would think that he maybe have a few more on a team like North Dakota. But this is a guy that we've been high on. We like the player. We think he's really good. I mean, I haven't seen anything that has caused me concern in college. I don't know about you, but I think this is a player that has absolutely lived up to the billing so far, and now it's going to be on him to kind of elevate through the second half in order to, try and prove himself. But, Cam, we talk about the premium position. If Gavin McKenna is faltering and he is a wing, and you have this other player, this 6'4" behemoth who, potentially could be a number one defenseman, then that debate and that argument becomes louder. Like I said, I don't think it's there yet, but where do you think kind of Keaton is at this point? Any concerns or otherwise on your end?
No, I mean, again, I'm looking forward to seeing him live. Hopefully it's at juniors too, before even heading out to go see them, North Dakota. But it's interesting. Another young player going to a program, McKenna's playing 23 minutes a night. He's seeing 80, 85, 90% of the power play time on the top unit there. Verhoff, I think, had his first 20-plus minute game, and it was 20 minutes and like 4 seconds or something this last weekend. They've been managing him. They've been keeping him, 18, 17, 19 minutes. They've been holding a little bit of training wheels, a little bit of bubble wrap on him as he adjusts as a very young 17-year-old, a true freshman playing college hockey. But I've liked what I've seen. Now, you mentioned too, is that a big reason that we're not really talking about, and I am going to do like a video series on, guys who could push McKenna for number one. And obviously Keaton's right near the top of that list, if not the top at it, is that, he hasn't really just grabbed it and been like, look at me,
Right.
everybody. I'm the number one. Same with, Ivor Stenberg's had one of the best draft eligible seasons in the SHL in the last ever, or at least last couple decades. But again, it hasn't been like, I'm number one, I'm that much better than Gavin. Ethan Belchetz has such a unique frame, and he's had some games where he looks like he's like a superstar, and then he's had some pretty average games too. But when it comes to Verhoff, I think the shot is obviously, a cannon, a weapon. They're using it. I think that's going to get him on Team Canada for the World Juniors as well, especially when they don't get these NHL guys back. But I'm really looking forward to seeing when they do take the training wheels off him and he's playing 23, 24 minutes a night and he's facing, top teams trying to shut down the other team's best players because, he's not Matthew Schaefer. He doesn't skate like that. And that is what I'm really looking to see is can he handle the speed at this level, the very best speed at this level, the very best speed at the U20 level, because that's what he's going to have to show, I think, to really jump ahead, unless the team wants to get a little funny. If they, if it's San Jose or something like that, picking at the very top and they're like, we want a defenseman badly, then you know what? They might just go Verhoff over McKenna just for that. But not many teams, I think, will be looking at it with that specific. So for him to jump over Gav, he's going to really have to, they always say, right? You have to beat the champ, right? You have to knock him out. And Gav is not the number one overall pick, but in everybody's minds, he came in as the guy. So you have to knock him off.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. You have to kind of force your way into it. So yeah, and I think it's been a really good I really think that North Dakota has done a nice job with Keaton Verhoff and making sure, because he is a young 17-year-old playing defense in this league. The guys that will kind of look to compare him to will be, the Hannafins and the Werenskis, more so than like a Boumediene who played in college last year. That's who we'll be kind of looking at and using as some of those point benchmarks maybe. But I think really overall he profiles a little bit, differently in terms of what he's going to ultimately be as an NHL player. Just a couple of other guys quick too, Cam. Justin Poirier, I think, has had an outstanding start to his season at Maine. He's been one of the best CHL players in college hockey this year. Ryder Ritchie has had solid points. I don't know that necessarily he has popped in the way that he can, and I think will over time. Jackson Smith, good points up and down away from the puck. But Michigan, unfortunately, Henry Muse was having a really strong start to this year. He gets injured. He's out for the year. And then Malcolm Spence, I think, has also shown that he's made a good decision in terms of pushing and otherwise. Are there any thoughts about those guys and just in general from what you've seen about, generally from the CHL players that did decide to play in the NCAA?
One of the things I think about too is Justin Poirier. It's like, I'm pretty sure he has the same points in games played as Gav. And we're saying like, what a great, one of the best CHLers moving over. And over here, we're like, man, Gav, what's wrong with McKenna? Jeez.
Fair.
Expectations, right? Expectations.
Yep. Changes
but
everything.
I will talk on Smith just a little bit because again, I saw him twice this last weekend. Man, can that kid skate? Like,
yes, he can.
He's so gifted. He is so gifted with his feet. Like I'm not sure there was one shift where I don't even know if he took a stride. He was just like sculling out there and using his hips and edges and just floating and opening up and beating guys. And I was like, oh, what I would do to skate like that. He should be on Team Canada if they don't get any NHL defensemen back. Like he wasn't even invited to the summer showcase. Like it seems like Hockey Canada is not that big on Jackson Smith, but you look at the size, you look at the skating ability. He was running the power play for Penn. Like he has offensive jam for sure, like juice. He can get caught a little bit defensively at times, but for my money, he should 100% be like right in the mix to be on that World Junior team for Canada as well.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about Canada's World Junior team here in just a second. But the other thing is so we focus on all the CHL guys that have moved in, but there's been a lot of other guys that are returning for another season or were on the traditional path that haven't necessarily popped this year. And I'll start here. The guy that I thought would potentially be the favorite to win the Hobey Baker this year, even beyond Gavin McKenna, was James Hagens. And Hagens has a point per game right now, 9 points in 9 games. But man, BC, it's been tough to watch their games and feel super confident about kind of where that's going. I don't think that you're going to, see James, unless he really turns it up here, get into that Hobie conversation. The way that he's played. Teddy Stiga, World Junior hero, really low in the point total this year, not impacting the game as much as I think was expected. And certainly in the absence of Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard, a player needs to step up in that regard. But those are those guys. But I mean, we also talked a little bit, you're going to go down to Arizona State at some point. Cullen Potter is another player where the expectations have not been met at this point in his sophomore season after he snuck into the first round last June.
Yeah. And you mentioned some of the reasons, especially with those Boston College boys, right? Is that they're just not as good a team as they have been for recent years, right? But at the same time, I have to think and I have to wonder, college hockey is better this season than it was last season, right? The influx of CHL talent, it is better. Like the floor is higher, and I think the high end is higher as well. I think everything has moved up. And for guys, so yes, Hagens doesn't have Leonard and Perreault to work with anymore like he did as a freshman last year, just, airlifted into like one of the best spots in college hockey. Now he doesn't have that. He does have his good buddy Teddy Stiga there, but it's like they're just not able to drive play at the same level that they maybe could have if this was just last year. Cullen Potter, you brought it off air there too, is that you were, a little surprised that he didn't maybe go into the portal too. And, ASU allows him to kind of, by and large, do what he wants, right? Like go fly out there. He's got the wheels, but it's not working. And the program doesn't have the discipline in its structure, I think, to really develop him to the maximum. And I'm curious what Calgary wants to do with him after this. Do they want him to transfer? Do they want to bring him out and get him in the American League next year? And so I'll be curious to see what they do with Potter throughout, at the end of this season too. But college hockey, it is good hockey right now, like high level hockey. And so for some of these kids that are deciding when to go, if they're going to go, like, like Pearson Bowie is like one of the top OHL scorers this year, and he's off to Penn, supposed to be next year too, right? And they're like, if you look at some of the ways that these guys are going from like dominant OHL players or CHL players and then like stepping into the NCAA, and it's a slog, especially early on in the season. It's hard. It's a hard transition to make. It is good hockey.
Good hockey, and it's closer, the structure wise is going to get you closer to what an NHL game is going to be like. There's less time and space, and then there's a wide array of skill, and obviously you're dealing with older players. But so this year we're not using the pairwise anymore. We're using NPI to pick teams, and you look at some of these teams that are up in that ranking. And they're, it looks crazy. You shouldn't look at it this early.
Long Island?
I'm just saying more than anything, there's just a lot of, you see the parity of the college hockey right now. And one of the things that isn't talked about a lot is the guys that aged out of the CHL that then went to college. There's a number of players that were in U Sports that transferred to NCAA schools. And those like schools like Lindenwood and Miami and Bowling Green, they're getting players that are going to, kind of help them stay competitive. They might not be the big names, but they're older players and they're becoming major contributors. So it is a fascinating time to be following college hockey. And maybe we should be giving more of these players more grace because the quality of hockey is improved. And as a result, it's gotten harder to play. But I think if you're a top guy, you still need to be a top guy. And another two guys that have really struggled this year relative to what they looked like last year, Mikhail Yegorov, who's one of my favorite goalies in college hockey, massive human at BU, really solid, well under 900 save percentage right now. And so is defending national champion Hampton Sliskinski, who is well under 900. Western Michigan is dealing with a tremendous amount of injuries right now, including to Una Väisänen, who is one of the better defensemen in all of college hockey, a very unheralded prospect for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's out for long term. So there's a lot of, that's happening too. There's a lot of things that you can't control. All right, Cam, I wanted to touch on this quickly because Liz and I also chatted about it last week, but I wanted to just kind of go buzz through this a little bit. And because we are getting to the time where decisions are starting to be made for the World Juniors. We talked about it a little bit more there, but I want to focus us in on Team Canada right now. because I have two questions. One, how much help are they going to get from the NHL teams? And two, how do they structure their defense if they don't get that help? Because we mentioned guys like Jackson Smith, and does Keaton Verhoff get an extended look to potentially be in the mix for them? You know, we talk about guys like Dickinson and Perek. Will they be loaned? Those are the kind of things that we got to know. So first thought, do you think there's going to be much help from the NHL teams, or should Canada be planning to not have any of those guys?
I think Brunick is their best chance to get a D-man back. Yeah. But I also know that Pittsburgh has been very happy with him, and that, you know, one of the biggest issues has been finding someone for him to play with, to finding a guy that meshes well with his style in their organization. And it has been difficult for them. You know, they keep scratching him. He's at the 9-game mark, I do believe. I think he's with the team going over to Stockholm for the global whatever games there against Nashville. So they're really taking their time deciding if they want to burn that year of his ELC. I think Brunick is a good chance of coming back. Perek, I've been very vocal about, you know, getting him some fun and getting him out of the basement in Calgary, where, you know, mistakes have led to him being scratched or him to being benched. And this is a player that you don't need to coddle him, but you need to recognize what you have here. And it's not a two-way monster. It is a potentially massive offensive generator for you, a difference maker offensively. And you're going to have to take the good with the bad a little bit. And when it's already a lost season, like, they're not playing at a 690 win rate the rest of the year to get to be the second wildcard team in the West. It's just not happening. So it's time to just be like, okay, shoving our chips in for future years. But I do wonder, does Zane want to go? You know, after last year, you know, pretty insulting, I would say, what they did to him last year. Reigning CHL Defenseman of the Year, crushing it in Saginaw, putting up tons and tons of points, and then doesn't even get an invite, right? Then he gets like the after the thought invite, if memory serves. I don't know. I wonder if I'm Zane Perek, I might be like, you had your chance to have me. Now I'm an NHLer and I'm going to take my paycheck up here and I'm going to stay with the big team, even if Canada wants, or if Calgary's like, do you want to go? Like, I wonder if he even says yes. And then Dickey, you know, he's already been there. I don't know. I think San Jose is they're happy with how they're developing him too. You know, they're managing him. They're trying to get him to the spot where he can be a two-way guy for them as well. And so, yeah, I don't know if they're getting any of their D-men except for maybe Brunick.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And I think you're right on. Like, Zane Perek did not hide how not into being at the summer showcase he was this year. He was like, my plan is to be in Calgary. So
yeah,
my guess is that, you know, Calgary will dictate what he does, but they will probably do it in consultation with him and his agent and everything else, and making sure that they're doing right by him there. But that is a very strong point, is like, yes, he would potentially be an option, but is he? So now you got to structure that D core, and the depth thins out dramatically after you lose those players. I think, you know, you're looking at Ben Danford, you're looking at potentially Owen Protz, you're looking at, you know, as I mentioned, Keaton Verhoff, and you mentioned Jackson Smith, and you know, others like that. Henry Muse would have probably been in the mix. He had a really strong summer showcase. He's out and unavailable. So now you have this depth concern, and I still think that Canada's got plenty of talent, and wouldn't be concerned. But really now you are kind of starting to scrape a little bit for quality defensemen, because you figure you're going to take, you know, your 8 defensemen that you can take now. And, you know, maybe they don't, maybe they take an extra forward. I mean, like, maybe you only take 7. Can you cobble together 7? I mean, I'd be curious to see what they do with that decor. I mean, any other guys that I'm not like even thinking about right now that you know,
there's one guy you haven't brought up. Kayshawn, right? Cash and
Aitchison, for sure.
Right, he's scoring at an incredible rate right now, and we joked about it last. You know, it's like defensive scoring is really hard to replicate year over year. Are you actually getting a 20-goal defensive? Like, yes, you are. He is scoring goals at an incredible rate right now, and he brings just that different element. Like, he's going to go out there and take a 5 on the first shift of a game by just steamrolling some Latvian in open ice. Like that is like smash all of your money you have on Kayshawn getting tossed first shift one of these games at the World Juniors, because he won't be able to hold it back. But, he's going to probably be your top left D, right? And then it's like, is it Brunick next to him? Danford, I think, is going to be there for sure. The biggest one I'm curious about, if they don't get Perek, if they don't get Dickey, which we assume they're not getting Dickinson. Obviously, Shafe's not coming back. What about Zav? What about Xavier? Right? Do they just bring a kid there to be like, here's top power play for you? Because as far as like purely offensive generating guys on the power play, he's the best one available, right?
Yep.
They
did,
right? Cameron Reed, like Verhoff, Jackson Smith, like what? Who's
I have
picking him
another
out?
one for you, even though he hasn't been amazing this year. Landon DuPont.
I had a scout text me yesterday his prediction for World Juniors, and he had Landon DuPont on the first pair, and I said, "Whoo, that's spicy over Verhoff." And he goes, "Why? He's the best U20 right shot defenseman that Canada has. It doesn't matter how old he is. He's the best that they have." And I was like, "Whoo, you're speaking my language." But we know Hockey Canada. We've been around the block a few times. Do you think they're taking Landon DuPont? Especially Landon DuPont, who doesn't have the points right now, right? Even though he's been generating a ton of looks and expected goals, I think he's a half point a game right now. So he's not even
he's half point a game. Yeah. That's, and that's the thing is like, and then you look at a Villeneuve who actually, Blainville has struggled mightily in the last little bit here, and Xavier has actually had maybe the toughest stretch of his young career. Not well timed, but I think, basically Hockey Canada did that with a young defenseman by the name of Cale Makar. He was their 7th defenseman. He led their D in scoring at the 2018 World Juniors, playing about 4 minutes a game.
That was hilarious.
Looking back on that and watching, I was there. I saw how he played. I was like, how is this kid not playing a regular shift on this team? Like, what is happening here? And they almost lost the gold medal game as a result, but they did not. And that's all we needed to say about that. I'm going to skip past the U.S. stuff. We're going to talk about them a little bit more in depth in the near future. Not a lot to write home about right now, because we talked about the guys that are struggling in college. The goaltending situation is dire, I think, is the only way to describe that. But I did want to quickly touch on the Europeans, because Sweden went and played at the Five Nations, the U20 Five Nations. They did win the tournament, but they lost to Finland 5-1 in that tournament. 2 guys for Finland, Oliver Savanto and Juho Pipparainen, 2 guys that are going to be big-time NHL draft guys this year. I think Finland's got a couple of, they've found some solutions potentially to some of their forward and defensive depth concerns in this, but we'll see exactly what happens there. But I also wanted to ask you if there was any other takeaways from this kind of Euro U20 kind of situation, because I have Sweden as a potential favorite, and yet they looked very okay. Although Viggo Bjork looked pretty good. So there's that. But any other thoughts for you?
Yeah, both Pimperainen and Savanto were really high on that. My Cam's consensus, the scout poll. I had a few scouts bring them up early, right before many people were talking about, especially Savanto, because it's so light on centers this year, especially big body ones. And so he's really interesting for sure. Yeah, I didn't catch much of the tournament. I know that there's tons of scouts over there too, but I heard Viggo is doing really well. I got to see him over when I was in Sweden a little bit too, and chat with him. And I like Viggo. I think he's a great player. He's just a little undersized, but I think he still has the potential to be a stud. And do I think he's going to go top 10? I wonder, just because of the size. But do I think he's going to end up being worth a top 10 pick? Yeah, probably. Some other guys, just talking with some of the scouts too, that looked good. Olofsson, Alexander Command, and then Sammy Nelson for the Americans too. It was apparently another standout, a 27 kid. But Olofsson is, he's fun, right? Offensive, a little bit smaller, but like that guy can create some offense too. So he's going to be one to watch, I think, this year as well too. But yeah, it's always interesting trying to mine over in Europe for teams that it's kind of a market inefficiency still, is that those guys get a little bit underrated unless they're kind of the top guys like we saw Frundell last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be I can't wait for suddenly the World Juniors is starting to get a little bit more exciting to me because I think there's so many unknowns right now going into the tournament. And my hope is that creates a more competitive tournament because, all things considered, it has been a little bit of a kind of okay event.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, and let's not even talk about the under 18s at this moment. I don't want to think about that right now. But anyway, we're going on to we're going to go on to our Beyond Belief segment here next. And Cam, we're back and we've got some stuff here. We got a number of things that I want to get to. And here's one thing we did not talk about with Gavin McKenna. And let me be clear in saying that there's no whispers of this. This is merely for discussion purposes.
Chris Peters reporting.
Don't just clip this. Don't clip this without the context of the answer and this being beyond belief. Gavin McKenna will return to Medicine Hat after the World Juniors.
So I've heard from a source named Chris Peters that Gavin McKenna will return to Medicine Hat after the World Juniors. Wow. Clip it, spread it, radio this man. You are going to get his agent blowing you up. Willie D's going to be calling you being like, is it true? Desjardins will be happy. That is
go ahead, Cam. Tell people.
Belief. Yes, beyond belief. I don't think there is a snowball's chance in hell that he's back in Medicine Hat. Like that is done. And the reason that I put closed, he's done everything he can there.
Yep. And I want to make sure that one of the reasons I put that in there is I felt like we haven't had a really true, super beyond belief thing. And maybe that's what we needed. And we got that. But yes, I agree. And I think there's a lot of other factors at play. The thing about it, Gavin McKenna, that I think the biggest reason why he's going to be fine, he's going to figure it out. I'm sure he's paying attention to what's being said in a certain way. And he's like, screw this. I'm a good player. Let me go prove it again. Like I have many times. So I think it's going to be beneficial to him. And I do think, eventually, the other thing is Penn State, let's maybe see if we can get some more shifts with Gavin with Serrato. He did play a little bit with Serrato at Michigan State, didn't he? A little bit. So let's see if he can get
one or two shifts.
Yeah. Let's see if you can maybe get him going with a couple of those guys. All right, your turn.
Okay. Alexis Joseph has surpassed Landon DuPont for the top pick in 2027. Now, just for context, he's just shy of a point per game and just tore up the U17s. I believe he led that tournament in scoring.
Correct. Yeah, he was technically finished second, but he was tops among all Canadian players. 11 points in that, or 13. Actually, no, you're right, because they did some scoring changes, and he now has 13 points as opposed to 11 that they had listed. So, yes, he was the leading scorer in that tournament. Alexis Joseph plays for the St. John Sea Dogs. Here's the thing. I think it's beyond belief for right now, because I think that Landon DuPont has the longer runway, the more that we've seen. But here's why Alexis Joseph needs to be in the discussion for number one. 6'5" center, can skate, big time skill, excellent hockey sense, good competitive drive, has a little bit of a nasty streak to him that he's only just figuring out how to maximize. He is 16 years old. He was the best player in that tournament, and he is going to be that package. He's already 6'5", 201 pounds at 16 years old. The comparisons that are coming out about him, like I said, you always have to be careful. But I think a lot of people have chased the next Evgeny Malkin since Evgeny Malkin and haven't quite found it. I think they feel like Alexis Joseph is that guy. Now, the question is going to be the 6'5" center versus the 5'11", 6-foot defenseman. Is Landon DuPont that Quinn Hughes, that Adam Fox, that Cale Makar? If he is that, and you feel like he is going, that can impact the game in such a way, but so many teams are going to look at that 6'5" center with the potential to be a scorer. The other reason that I'm saying it's beyond belief right now, Cam, is he is a close to a point per game in the QMJHL. I think at 16, the expectation is for him to just continue to move up. And I think if he has a second half where he's a point per game, a point and a half per game, then we're going to start hearing this debate. So it's beyond belief for now, but I do think that Alexis Joseph is in the conversation while Landon DuPont still has his hold on number one.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. Although I do think Corey, I think Pronman did just pop him at number one, didn't he? On his board,
He did. He popped him.
He
He actually had DuPont 3. He had DuPont 3, Corey. So so 3, and that's because both forwards ahead of him, 6'5", 6'4". So there you go.
I mean, can't teach size. Can't teach size.
Can't teach size. You can't. And you can and you take that tape measure out, and it helps a lot. Yep. All right. Yep. Here's one for you, and this goes back to our World Junior discussion. And we didn't talk about Canada's forwards, but this is going to be a tough group to crack. But I just wanted to ask you because we talked about him a little bit. Ethan Belchetz will get a look from Team Canada for the World Junior Championship. This isn't saying, I guess that's not definitive enough. Ethan Belchetz will make Team Canada for the World Juniors. Let's do it that way, so that's more definitive.
I'm going to say it's beyond belief. And I want more draft eligibles there, right? We want live views on these kids in a big pressure situation. So I would love it if he was going to be there because like I think this kid could go number 2. I mean, there's a world where he could go number 1, right? We're talking about a 6'5", 225-pound monster. He's a wing, but he's got great hands down low. Another former first overall pick like Alexi, right? I believe Belchetz was number 1 in his draft year. Yeah, he was in the OHL. Yeah. He's scoring goals, right? He's putting up, just under a goal per game there for Windsor. Again, it's been some inconsistency, I would say. Some games he looks like a monster and a man among boys, which he is. And then other times he's a little more dark. But, I've had people ask me too, is that like, is he really that good or is he just that much bigger than everybody else? So it's like, he's going to have the size advantage in the NHL too. Like there are not many guys. Like there's going to be 6'3", 220-pound, 30-year-old defensemen that are going to be able to manhandle him still because he doesn't have his man strength yet. But when he does, like, oh boy, there won't be many guys that are going to be able to handle him. And we see it with Slavkovsky, right? Like similar weight, but he's still learning how to use it, and he has to strengthen up those tendons and really kind of densify his muscle. And so Belchetz is going to run into that too, but he's got snarl, he's got handles, he's got skill, he's got a lot of size, right? So I don't think he will be there this year for Canada, although he'd be a unique piece to bring. But I do think he is definitely in the conversation to start pushing up on those draft boards.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the stock is going up. If he had a few more points here and there, if he had a few more that he could get going, like I think that he would be
he had like 30.
Very much in the discussion. Yeah, very much in the discussion. Yeah, like he's at 24 points. Like he's well over a point per game right now. But you go back to his 16-year-old season and it was okay. Like it wasn't, it was like for that level, it was only okay. And so, the guys, it's easier to project those guys that have also done it at the younger ages, the guys that have really popped. And for him now, I think he's figured out how to use the size even better. He is playing with good players. He is putting himself in good positions. He hits, he fights, he does all those different things. So, he is fascinating to watch. I think if you could drop the gloves in the World Juniors, you might consider bringing him there as well, and for the intimidation factor. But that'll do it on Ethan Belchetz. And I tend to agree with you. I think it is potentially beyond belief, but I think he's at least got to be in the mix for consideration when you consider the size and speed factor that he has.
Yeah. Okay, last one here. If McKenna does not go number 1, will that burn a bit of that bridge for CHL players? Will guys second guess moving over for their draft year? How about that? Let's be specific. Will it limit draft eligibles from choosing college hockey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that playing with your draft eligible season is a different thing than playing for development, right? So there's a couple of, it shouldn't be, but it is. And so to me, it will. I think you look at Alexis Joseph. So to me, it's believable. You look at Alexis Joseph and you say, okay, I'm doing all right at the QMJHL level. Next year is going to be my chance to, really pop. And so I'll stay. I think that that's something that will more than likely happen next year.
Yeah.
Every major program is after Alexis Joseph. And it's going to be up to him. I think the bigger question is if he goes to school, not what school does he go to. That to me is the bigger question. Landon DuPont, same thing. As a
extra year junior.
Extra year junior, so he does have that. So like that's another question. So I think that these guys are going to have to kind of assess where they are at in their development. And the thing is that what's to say you take that step of playing an extra year junior, you get drafted, then you do the Porter Martone, you go to college. Yes, are you delaying your potential for that contract right away? Yeah, you are. Are you putting yourself in a better position to be an impactful player in year one of your NHL career? Yes, you are. So I think it's believable that fewer players will want to spend their draft year there. But you watch McKenna, watch Verhoff, watch Adam Valentini for that matter, who was going to go CHL and then didn't, and has produced enough. Where does he go? There's a lot of different things that are at play here. But if Gavin himself does not go number one, that is going to be a very bad thing for recruiting for college hockey in general for the younger player. But I still think they're going to get some of these guys post-draft.
Yeah, I do too. And like, you just mentioned the 3 draft eligibles that are in school right now, right? And last year there was, I'm thinking Van Sagi and Hensler and Boumediene, but there isn't usually many, right, that go. And I do think we will still see the very best. The guy, McKenna just was CHL Player of the Year as a D-1. What's he going to do, right? Like, you can criticize him, be like, oh, if you stayed in Medicine Hat, like, you'd have tons of points and everyone would be like, yeah, he's a number 1 overall pick. But it's like, or would they be like, why didn't he try to challenge himself? You can only put up so many points. And especially like Richie's gone, Lindstrom's gone, like he wasn't going to be surrounded by the same type of talent. So I think for the very elite players, that even if he doesn't go number 1, I still think that they will be looking for a new challenge if they have dominated to a similar level that he has already. But they might be looking at a program with a longer history of, really bringing along high-end pieces too, right? Maybe they go with a more traditional school and leave some money on the table for that NIL too. But I do think we've talked about this before, that I think the first couple of years with CHLers going over is going to be a bit of a test case for a lot of these younger players. How is it going? Should I reevaluate what I'm going to do? Are these guys succeeding? Are they not? Like, when's the best time to jump? Is it as an 18-year-old? Is it as a 19-year-old? So there's going to be a feeling out process for everybody. Agents are going to be working and watching very, very closely too on how to best guide their clients too. Maybe they're not considered agents because they're advisors. It's going to be very, very interesting. And I do think that is believable, that it could change things, and not just Gavin, but just how everybody adapts to college hockey.
Right. And then there's been a lot of talk about the water leveling out, and different things about, hey, like it is swung so far one way. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some course correction coming in recent years. There's going to be a lot more other things that are going to happen in the background that aren't just related to the CHL players going to the NCAA, but we think about different things like expansion on both sides of the border, different things like that are going to be even hotter debates than what we've seen, at least in the boardrooms and behind the scenes, than what has been more out public, which is the player fights. But there's a lot more coming in this new landscape that is not just tied to player movement. So we'll tackle that another day. But instead, let's go ahead and close things out with our You Have to Pick One segment. And so I wanted to take the focus off of Gavin McKenna for a minute, because we've talked about him so much. The poor kid, we're just, we're constantly shining a spotlight on him. That's what comes with being the number 1 guy. But there are other wingers that are going to be really interesting, and I wanted to focus on 2 of them. And so I'm giving you you have to pick one, but you can only pick between these 2 players. For the next winger, Ethan Belchetz of the Windsor Spitfires or Ivar Stenberg of Frölunda.
This kills
Where
me.
are you going to go? And let's think about this,
tough.
Cam. It's not, you're at the draft table.
Yeah.
You've got Gavin McKenna has just gone off the board. You are picking a winger. Which of these 2 guys are you taking?
Gosh, this one really is tough, because I'll be completely honest with you. I like Ivar Stenberg's better. I like his dynamicism. I like him as a player. I think right now I do like him better. And I think that playing pro hockey the last 2 years too, and that just that the body of work, I think he's probably closer to NHL ready. He's older too. But if it's me at the table at this point, the upside with Belchetz, gosh, that would be hard to pass up on with his size and his skill. I think I might end up being a dinosaur and being like, you got to go with the big man. I think you take the big man in this spot. But even, oh gosh, that's why they don't pay me the $2 million to make these decisions a year, right? Thank goodness.
Oh man, I know, and it is very, very challenging. I mean, but you look at the situation. I think I agree. I think that the 6'5" winger with the I think Ivar Stenberg's hockey sense is a step above. I think that he plays the game.
Yeah.
He processes the game at a faster speed. But again, it comes back to that upside equation. And as we look at the way that the draft, you look at some of the big guys that were taken last year, you look at some of the big guys that are going to be available this year and next year with guys like Joseph and others. I mean, I just think that the NHL still has not a fascination, but really you need to have some bigger players. And, I think you look at some of the teams that have overdrafted on the smaller side, and now they're trying to find other ways to add size. Can you add size with your premium? Yeah. Could you add size with your premium players? Because having size in your fourth line alone doesn't help you. You need it throughout your lineup. So I think that's the thing. And Stenberg, to me, is going to be a very interesting, and I think at times polarizing, because his numbers are going to be really good. He has those moments where you're just not sure about, if he's got all of it there all the time. But I like the player a lot. I think you're going to be happy if you get either one of them, but I do think that Belchetz is going to ultimately, I also think that's how it will go on top of it. Probably. Not just how I think I would do it, but I think it would go that way. All right, Cam, we're just about out of time, but before we go, why don't you tell everybody what's coming up on Elite Prospects from your many travels across the globe?
Off to go hang out with Ryan Lynn next week, and go spend some time with Linner and do some writing, do some video, check out a Giants game. So that should be fun. And then I guess I'll kind of focus up on World Juniors coming up here. We got another draft meeting too, so we'll be releasing another boarded EP, our group there too. So that'll be something to watch out for. But yeah, we're always churning out content, and apparently I'm on the roads. Travel season has begun.
Yeah, lots of places to be. I will also be hitting the road soon for the CHL USA Prospects Challenge in a couple of weeks in Calgary. That's a nod to. I always thought of the way Barry Melrose said Calgary, and he said Calgary, and I was like, all right, I like that. But anyway, I don't think many people say it that way.
No, because it's wrong.
Yeah. Hey man, who am I to judge? But anyway, there's a lot coming up on FloHockey. Obviously, we've got some really exciting things coming your way in terms of our World Junior coverage and World Junior prep. A lot more coming up on previewing both Team USA, Team Canada. We'll also talk a bit about Team Sweden. And as always, if you want to watch a number of these players, guys like Ethan Belchetz, and Alexis Joseph for that matter, go ahead and watch them on FloHockey. Get that annual subscription today. Lots of great games coming up. The AHL, ECHL have had some absolute barn burners in the last couple of weeks that I've been watching. We're on the Samsung and Vizio apps as well now, the smart TVs. Get those apps. I've been watching a lot on my Samsung app, and it has been going great. So make sure you get that as well. And man, Cam, it's finally been nice lately. It feels like we're able to kind of start pulling some actual. We can't use the excuse that it's too early anymore. It's still early, but it's not too early now to start actually having some of these in-depth conversations about some of these players. And I mean, it is a fascinating time in the hockey world. So Cam, man, it's been fun. It's great to have you back. Let's do it again next week. Let's try to stay on the straight and narrow here. We'll both try to stay healthy. We'll both try to make sure that we're making the most of our time here, but boy, a lot of fun coming up. And almost holiday season as well. So, geez, it's getting good. I want to give a special thanks to Nikki for producing today. And also thanks to Liz Child for filling in for Cam last week. We got a lot more coming your way in the coming weeks here on Called Up, the Prospects podcast. For Cam Robinson, I'm Chris Peters. We'll see you next time.